Okay. Hey everyone. Right now I'm giving how would I say? I'm using the Wi-Fi of a coffee shop, and I thought I'd record a quick episode. Just to see what I can do with the ideas I have here. Okay. Pretty much, I wrote down a bunch of sentences. And I feel if I explain these, I'll get through what I'm trying to convey. Is man a mask of God? Is the human mind masking God? God masked as humanity's greatness. The ego as a mask of God or man, question mark. And I think this final note I've written here is for another episode, but it's titled, Is Free Will Natural? I guess I'll touch upon that. So it's not let me see what's a good starting point. Human beings have multiple relationships with the moment, and that awareness present within the moment that acknowledges all the relationships simultaneously is the conscious center of the unconscious. I guess what I mean by this is that eyes open, there is an awareness to space, there's an awareness to stuff in space. We start off being the stuff. And once we have established conscious relationship with how we are individually existing, we become conscious of how we are collectively existing. Now, it is fair to say that human beings back in the day, they wondered where people came from, and they were like, okay, people come from people. And so it's not too far-fetched of an idea, especially when the archetype of a king was around, that what if the whole world, the cosmos, the world came from a person? And what if there was a king beyond the world of the world? You see the nature of I'm someone who I could say royalty has, just since childhood, the concept of kings and queens has had a fascination for me. What's really fascinating is the type of psychology a king or queen has, because it is one where the nation bows to their presence, right? What we know is that the human being is a creature of attention, and where its attention goes, its life unfolds. The attention of this creature that we are, none of us can ignore it. To me, religions, I'll just say it, my personal opinion, religions to me are instances, they are literally ideological systems that are behaving as if they are time travel intervention. What I mean by this is that religions, to me, the prophets of religions are time travelers. But it's not the linear time we see. It's not the type, like in ancient Greek thought, they had two different senses of time. They had kairos and they had chronos. Chronos spelled CHRONUS, kairos KAI. ROS, right? And so kairos was the suggestion of divine time, and chronos was the suggestion of chronological time. And so back in the day, the ancient people believed that there were transcendental presences, right? To me, what's really fascinating about human history, it doesn't matter which era in human history you take a sample of humanity, but at some point it's like the one common denominator to human psychology has been in its acceptance of the invisible, the non-physical, as the foundation of the visible. Let me see how else I can say this. And if there are any viewers, write something in the comment section so I know you're here. Anyways, there's many approaches, there's many things that's happening. I'm going to get into causality and the infinite regress. It's an important idea. Let's talk about necessary existence and my view on it. But the main focus is that, is man a mask of God? Is the human mind masking God? And what is the point of such a structure in the vicinity of human minds? You see, it's not just physical stuff that's like, wow, what a cool world, wondrous world we're in. There's an ideological way the whole reality is being kept, and what people think is knowledge is actually how we are coordinating image and in eventhood. It's pretty much, life is this film, this real film, and we're using language as an abstract way to convert the real film. Human beings must realize that there is something in our design that disconnects us from the truth of nature. And people are going to be like, what do you mean, Mr. Within? How are we disconnected from nature? Dear viewers, all I have is how my eyes have experienced life so far. And what I have noticed about our minds and about the human idea is that the human idea is being generated in a system where if we start with an individualistic consideration, we will access mystery first. So what I'm trying to say is that an individual seeks knowledge because it has a relationship with the unknown. A collective being has a relationship with the unknown. What I'm trying to say is that where we are considering the individual human to be is simultaneously being a coherent network of existence. You know, there's this idea of okay, I gotta get into this. This is like so in philosophy there has been different ideas on causation and causality. There's something I found which I want to read for the viewers. There's a quote from Peter von Inwagen. A thing has necessary existence if it would have existed no matter what, and if it would have existed under any possible circumstances. That means a necessary existence is an unconditional existence. It's an existence that doesn't matter what sort of change to the conditions take place. This is Peter von Inwagen saying. Peter von Inwagen also says a thing has necessary existence if its non-existence would have been impossible. So what does that mean? From one angle, we're like, if something is existing and nothing can change it or affect it, it's a sort of necessary existential position. If there is something that is existing and we cannot fathom its non-existence, right, then in some sense, right, it's like anything where its non-existence is impossible is a sort of necessary existence, right, from Peter von Inwagen's point of view. Now, a comment about this, that it's the non-existence that by the nature of something not being able to, how would I say it? If something is impossible to non-exist, it's a necessary existence. There's something here. I drew parallels to this before I wanted to talk about it. Okay, here, I'll say it this way. Pretty much, if we cannot fathom its if its non-existence would be impossible. So right now, human beings, we look at reality and we're like, yo, there's matter in space, and where's this stuff? This stuff is in space. Right now, the location of our planet is non-local by the mere nature of forces keeping objects in the middle of nowhere. Right, it's like the whole philosophical argument of Alan Watts pointed to this, that if you have two spheres that are spinning around one another in a vacuum, which sphere is spinning around which? Or if you have a sphere in like a room where you can't see its edges, where is up, where is down, where is right, where is left? Like, we can't ignore how this human species was under the complete direct experiential control of nature, and through diversion and through separation is now being the permission of its individualism. You see, consciousness of humanity, like, sure, from one angle we're these human beings on a rock and we got to do the best we can, but from another angle, to be a human being is like the leaves changing color, or like the first snow. Like, it's just like a small part of something very macrocosmic happening. And this is, I find, true psychological maturity, where we think, like right now on this planet, that we, of course, there could be biological issues, cognitive issues to why an individual suddenly starts behaving insanely, right? But if we really look at the existential scenario, if we look at what type of storytelling that is going on in people's mind. In reality, what is going on, this is one of the coolest metaphors I think I can come up, is that Earth, this planet, is like a giant, okay? And in this giant is running in space, in the cosmos. Now, on the shoulder of this giant Earth is so big that on one shoulder of the giant, there's beings living, let's say human beings living, and on the other side of the giant, there's human beings, let's say creatures living. And so, imagine we've reached a point where not only are these it's like we're on the shoulder of a giant macrocosmic event. A micro consciousness has noticed a macrocosmic event. This is really what can make a person insane, right? That means, to me, we gotta honestly have a round of applause for all the astronomers, astronauts who've gone to space and come back and still maintained their sanity. Because really, Socrates pointed to it, that the only true wisdom is to know that you know nothing. And the thing about the path of knowledge, that knowledge is a sort of battle, and it depends with what sort of weaponry you go into the battlefield, with what sort of armor you go into the battlefield. I mean, right now, if we look at human beings have been pushed, we don't acknowledge it collectively, but we have been pushed into the era where our minds are going to start moving more than our bodies. This is the whole purpose of technology. Anybody wondering what sort of role of destiny technology will have? What sort of destiny technology will have? Really, the destiny of technology is that people are going to discover ways of experiencing life that is faster and more controllable than natural living. The human being has awakened, or I should say it this way, an unknown being has awakened in the human experience. And this is a very strange feeling, because really, to be truly spiritual is to not be of this world, you know. And there is so many people using spirituality as clothing. Like, for me, I decided to just let it go and, you know, let nature kind of, remind the esoteric wisdom of reality. But really, to me, there is a robotic, artificial, egoic, ritualistic way of going towards the divine and the unknown. And then there is the honest way. And anybody on this planet you have some interest in transcendentalism, metaphysics, the whole idea is that if you try to escape physical reality by seeking something non-physical, then you are going to forget why you were physical. So what I mean by this is that the young soul needs to verify its own truth in front of itself. A lot of beings need to demonstrate power on this planet so that they can get convinced they can convince themselves that they have the power. Okay? But let's just say, hypothetically speaking, in greater states of being, power is not an object or a subject. This is the difference. This is the difference between the yogis that the divine opened their eyes, already had opened their eyes, and then those who were trying to escape. You see, there is something attached with the concept of trying to escape, where it's as if the person could not rely on their own presence, right? It's as if what isn't escape, it is relocation. Human beings are hilarious. You know, you put plants, like I remember when I was young in my grandmother's house in the backyard, she had this plant that was growing on like this brick wall, right? And it was like, I was like, wow, look at this, nature trying to get everywhere, breaking through the asphalt, you know. Just like that plant extends its roots and stabilizes and accepts the location and becomes the location. Human beings are running a similar strategy, but we are just multidimensional. So it's another way of saying our consciousness is like the root of a plant of another dimension, imagine, and the roots of this plant go within every object. Okay? I have had moments where I have tried to test the precision of my own inner realms. There's something that Einstein says, I think it's Einstein, where somebody on that level of caliber, on Einstein's caliber, he said something in the lines of, if somebody can't say something simply enough, they haven't understood it. And it's this idea that if you can explain something, if you are going to explain something, you must have simply understood it. So I am one of those people on this planet, which for now seemingly unacknowledged globally, but I am one of those people on this planet who stopped and paused the mask of God. And what I mean by this is that we are like cannonballs. The human mind is shot into culture, thrown into culture. And this cannonball turns into a snowball and has the snowball effect and then becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And really what's going on is that human beings, this is my personal opinion, are reaching a point where sooner than we expected, there requires to be a multidimensional responsibility for the moment. Just like how a person, imagine, I haven't done this, but I know there's great people out there who have, people who go adopt let's say a kid from an orphanage. So now consciousness, upon discovering its experiential presence, will suddenly realize it has adopted a world. And there is many ways that the mind moves, and I have spent so much time throughout these years in wondering about, okay, there is something happening starting from the brain. Consciousness notices itself, and in the most simplest, purest way, notices is his being what it is looking for. There is a level of spirituality where the person just wants to see what's behind the door. That type of spirituality that sort of spirituality usually think of it this way. There's this incredible saying for martial arts, but it applies for the metaphysical arts. And they say when the student is ready, the master appears. And in my own life of giving these talks and wondering how my inner realms move, I have noticed that the reason we human beings are living is because we get a taste of life, but then the taste changes. And so really what is going on is that a person could be like, yo, I got a Facebook page, I got a my ID, my name is on a certificate on a wall, this is me, I lived a good day, I had a nice day, I had a great day. But we don't realize what we are calling a good day and a bad day is actually, from the beginning of the day, it's as if non-existence disappears instantaneously, converting into how consciousness logs in to reality. Right now, I'm like a logged in player in reality, but the game is elemental. Instead of made of pixels, it's made of the periodic table. A very high quality, high definition game. Personally, I don't know. I just had moments where I was like, am I gonna die without knowing what is here? Am I gonna exit this world without seeing its greatest potential and its greatest advancement? There's this story of this yogi. I don't know his name, but it was like this yogi who was this really next level liberated. The guy would go into samadhi, had lots of disciples, yogi. Okay. And this disciple had a wife. Oh my god. Excuse me. And this enlightened yogi would go to his yoga classes, teach his disciples, and he would give his satsangs. And he had a wife that would cook dinner, and something strange the wife noticed is that this super enlightened, yogi every day while he's in the yoga class, just at lunchtime, comes up to the wife and says, "Yo, what food are we having?" And then the wife gets really upset and says, "You're supposed to be an enlightened master that has renounced this, suffering attachments of this world. What kind of an enlightened guy are you that you come here waiting for food?" The wife says this to the husband, who's the enlightened guy. The yogi responds and says that if you don't see me eat for 3 days, know that I'm Mahasamadhiing out of this world. And the wife suddenly stops cooking for a moment to process what she heard. And she realizes the enlightened guy was saying, "Sweetheart, there isn't that many attachments in this realm, in this earth moon, right? And in order for us to keep our energy here, especially if we feel our energy was never here, then man has to consciously keep his body in the world." You see, this is the biggest issue with the whole New Age movement. All these Muji, bless them, Muji, Papaji, all these yogis, the whole spiritual community, all these aliens being channeled by people, bless those aliens and those people, all of that. But this is the ultimate realization. Right now, we are conditional by creatures. We are a type of unknown attention and intelligence that is functioning through a biological system. As the biological system is efficiently active, Then the psychological system, you can think of it this way, that a cognitive system is simultaneously being a translation of an angle to this moment, right? So what I'm trying to say is that what we in one moment snapshot accept as individualistic truth is actually multiple systems simultaneously happening. People think right now, I'm just this individual giving a talk. They do not see how gravity is keeping me here, how everything, all the forces of nature, they have stood their ground so man can perform. The inanimate world has waited for us to make it animate. This is the power. This is, what it is. It's like what people thought was magic was this power improperly used. You see, there's a type of power which is aligned with destiny, and it comes on the spot. In certain times in my life, I've been blessed and privileged to experience this. Sometimes I feel many are it's like a server. It's like you tap into the server and your mind already knows how to move the body, as if it has moved it before, but not from here. You see, it's about the texture of how our attention is being the intelligence that is moving. Dear viewers, the species does not know what is going on. We don't know what's going on. And there are teachers. Sometimes when I think about my high school and university, I get this sort of anger. I get angry at how all the teachers, every person that has claimed knowledge in front of me, if somebody says, Mr. Within, what are your, do you have a list of teachers? I'll be like, after some point, everybody is like in this hole and we're all trying to dig ourselves out of it. Or a better metaphor would be, imagine 8 billion human beings. They have gone to the peak of a mountain. As they are on the peak of a mountain, they don't know what else to do. They have gone through an evolutionary hierarchy, and they have reached the top of the hierarchy. They have reached the top of the system, and imagine being at the top of a system doesn't know what else to do. Most likely what tends to happen is that when you get to the top of the mountain, you still notice that the sky is there. You notice the clouds are there. And so this is where the vision begins blooming, where some people think spirituality, again, is like just contact with interdimensional beings. People think spirituality is just theosophy. But really what spirituality is you suddenly realize that this whole lifetime you have confidently acted as your known self. But there are moments where there is an unknown self, and there are clues to this. Okay? So what is the unknown self? This goes parallel to the title of this episode, where I'm saying, wait a minute. If there is a mask, which is the construct and the constitution of the ego in the moment, okay, there is a sense of self here. There is a way that right now as I'm speaking, a subject has accepted it's an object, and an object is noticing the subject. There is a sort of back and forth, as if the mind was a mirror of another dimension and the body was the mirror of another dimension, and what consciousness was this endless light in this hall of mirrors. Because really the greater dimensions have to do with the contentment of our experiential presence. See, this is really the only value of honesty. If somebody says, Mr. Within, why should I be honest in a cruel world, Should I be a naive, excuse my language, but should I be a naive dumbass, like in a cruel world, cruel and evil world? And I will tell you, forget The good forget the evil. Those are of the old world. Karma. The karma of the new world is advancement through multidimensional permission. What our ancestors were fighting over, the advanced intelligence of the future generations will have simplified. You see, human beings, we have a freaking dictionary. People are super relaxed. They're like, yeah, man, let's have a dictionary. You know, every culture has its own language. And in this dictionary, we're just going to put words. And these words are going to have images, you know. And what a dictionary is a book of magic. It is a grimoire. That's what a dictionary is. You know, people back in the day, you know, I'm serious, you know, some person may be like, Mr.Within, you know, it's like, leave dictionaries alone, you know, or like somebody's going to be like, Mr.Within, dictionaries, like, I know it's Christmas time, but dictionaries aren't like that magical. But let me tell you why. Because what magic is the concept of a simulation. I have not studied anything of magic on my own. Like, I never cared to go see what other people have said. But I have followed the fascination of my own mind with how anything moves at all in the moment. One thing that I did that I figured out, wait a minute. Am I being like me? Like my real name is Amin. Mr.Within is an online alias, okay? So it's like at some moments I'm like, okay, am I being Amin right now? Am I being the periodic table? Am I being nature right now? Or am I being God right now, right? And I've noticed that for the human experience, our conscious free will comes through inner eventhood. Really what the free will is, an act of free will, is how you live ahead in your mind. There was a character who was like the main bad guy. In this film called Chronicles of Riddick. And this bad guy had a metaphysical ability, like he had gone to the underworld or something, and he had this ability where he could move faster. Like pretty much he'd just been given ability of speed, right? So the guy could be standing in like point A, but his mind could already be at point B, and in like less than a second he's already, like half of him is already at point B, right? This notion of multi-locality. If somebody says, how many environments does the human being have access to? One immediate answer: when eyes are open, you know, when senses are present, when consciousness knows it is sensing shape, form, space, substance. It's as if it's free imagination. Reality is shape that we did not have to impose. And the nature of the brain is that the brain's like, yo, you think I'm gonna do nothing in emptiness? The brain is trying to be everything. You know, I have this as a theory. I haven't written it like as a proper journal entry, right? But academic journal entry, but we are reaching a point in human history where if the era of the multidimensional human being doesn't happen, if we as a species do not find the capability to, in an instant or immediately, because of how unnecessary it is, to stop the species' civil war. You see, something that connects us is our humanity. If right now, like the Independence Day movie or any other type of movie, aliens attacked human beings, would be like, yo, let's stop our, who has, excuse my language, let the nation stop with their big dick energy contest. And when will there come the attention to the future? I have found no greater organizing force. I have found no greater purpose to be alive. And I'll say this, I don't know if others have this experience or not, but I'll say it. There was a point where I asked myself, if I'm on a rock in the middle of nowhere, if the universe is going to go through an entropic heat death, right? If 99.9% of species go extinct, if we realize human being psychology is too savage to escape into, let's say, hyperintelligence or the hyperintellect. Right now, we are like these apes that have been given the most advanced technologies, and they have a choice to become them or to use your it's like right now people are using their higher selves as their lower selves. But when you realize what the higher self is how from the beginning of your whole life, your mind is not just an occupant of a physical component to the moment. Your mind is the space. Your soul is in the space that your body notices itself in. It's another way of saying that the brain takes sensory reception, and just like we have saliva that mixes with food, the body mixes its past experience and clothes the actual reality with its interpretations. Really, what the brain is the greatest illusionist. The brain is the greatest act of illusion. It is the act of, what is the future? How have we not noticed that this whole time, everything that human beings have gone towards, all the great inventions, all the new ideas, all the new artworks, all the new designs, all of it was inspired because our species, through discovering time and to finding the capability of being conscious to the moment, it began being attracted by the potential of its future. You see, something strange has happened. Not only has this creature become conscious of its individualism, but it has become conscious of how the whole cosmos is an event. To be honest, to be a human being, it's like the whole all consciousness in the cosmos in the form of creaturehood or any sort of geometrical position of consciousness in this universal sector. We are all cavalrymen. What does that mean? That means forget the student, teacher, sacred guru, put your thumb on my forehead, It's like, oh no, Corona, use sanitizer, it's like we have reached a time where every human being has to begin cultivating and training their multidimensional life and having the sharpness and accuracy to wonder in the middle of nowhere what has entered your mind, what has found itself in your presence. That is the beginning of mysticism, where true honesty is at an unknown starting point. That's the point of life. It is how a known doer, notices how it's all unknown being. So what I'm trying to say, and I'm getting too excited about, and I'm going to drink my coffee and hopefully the Starbucks Wi-Fi doesn't end. You know, there was a time where I was like, life, you know, you know, it's like, God, have you created me to be antisocial to notice divinity? And I realized this is the incredible opportunity. And it's not the opportunity of lifetimes. It's not the opportunity of any past life or any story. The true scholar, the mightiest scholars are those who find new worlds. And that is your value, O conscious mind, from whatever sector of this universe these words find you. The task of conscious intelligence is to realize and remember its dimensions. In yogic mythology, there was an idea called the divine remembrance. So back in the day when stuff was still good, you know, when stuff was legit, right now, you know, the yogis, like, you know, the gurus of nowadays are like, hey guys, you know, I got $100 tickets, but I'm gonna enlighten y'all, you know, like, and it's such like I don't know how to say it, but for me, questions about the geometry of the nature of perception existing have fascinated me more than my fears. Imagine somebody who was afraid of heights, who was afraid of insects, who was afraid of like a lot of stuff, right? Who was afraid of solitude, right? Because there is this view, like there was, this might be a bizarre thing. I have never been afraid of my mind, but I have been afraid of how my mind can happen sometimes. The biggest teaching in this world is to realize that it is not a solipsist's fantasy. Because if we were here to be the only mover, then there would be no point of an outer reality. The starting point of human consciousness, if we never had the idea, any idea, imagine the world woke up and it had forgotten, right? Imagine we had saved, like in one file, all of everything that had happened before 2022. And that file was like encrypted, it had a password, or it had something, or it was in some other hard drive or something. And imagine human beings had to start again, redefining and resetting their value systems for what reality is or can be. Really what it is that there is a simple dimension to truth that is so instantaneously being that in an instantaneous way truth never went anywhere. And it's kind of like, you know what truth was? Truth was a seed. And the simulation is the tree. And the tree is not the seed, but the seed is the tree. Man is not God, but God is within man. Because this question, I'm saying, people, of course, the concept of God, I was saying the infinite regress. So what is the idea? Even though I feel I'm a very unique person, I don't even know how to classify my own vision, aside from someone who feels truth is beyond language. If someone says, Mr. Within, why are you in this world? Why is your conscious attention still in the space-time continuum? Why are you being a performer in the history of the human species? The honest answer is because in my youth I have experienced many moments of the opposite of greatness. I have had moments where people have honored me, bless their eyes, and I have had moments where people have dishonored me, and this was when I was younger, okay, where language and conceptualization had an intensity for me, you know. But what I'm trying to say, I have found myself in strange moments alone with the world where I am asking myself, what is moving the moment? Am I moving the world? Like, let's say somebody comes and talks to me, and I've had moments where I've had a thought and I've been following a thought stream, and suddenly somebody's come and talked to me and they've literally vocalized those thoughts, you know? To me, there is another dimension here, but it's very subtle, and it's so subtle that it has disguised itself as the actor. Do you know, imagine there's a director, okay, of a film, and everybody's like, and the film, imagine, you know, the director, imagine the lights in the back, okay, imagine there's a film set, okay, and suddenly somebody shouts, the director shouts action, okay, and they turn on the lights and the director is gone. And suddenly they see there's an actor on stage. So imagine the director of the film became an actor of his own film. Okay? In at least when it comes to media and Hollywood and whatnot, that's like the best thing like an actor can do, right? Actors, they're like, yo, I've mastered being an actor. I'm gonna go be a writer, director. And writers and directors are like, yeah, I gotta act, bro. I've been in the industry too long, you know? So eventually they're all mixing. The world, technology is allowing everybody to be a polymath. So people are gonna understand. After some point, people are just gonna realize there's a force behind their eyes. And we're not taught to trust this force, to learn from this force, and to allow it to assist us in moments where our confidence depends on the might of our own free will's expectation. Right now, if whoever's listening to me right now, you have to ask, like, okay, who's this person speaking? Right? Now, the answer to that question would be like, okay, it's a biological human being, and then there is a mind this biological human being is projecting, and then this projection within the mind has its own story and specific outline and whatnot. But what I'm trying to tell the viewers is that I am also an observer. As I am giving every one of these talks, I am also hearing the sentences for the first time. I am also envisioning it, because sometimes in my mind I see something. Really, there was this movie called Jumper, and I would explain myself I'm an inner realm geometrical jumper. Like if we had classifications in the future, imagine we had dictionary of states of mind, I would probably be I think I just have a natural ability, or I shouldn't say I have a natural ability. My mind leaps from its limits. That means there's a moment in every human being's life where they have to be like, what am I looking at? And then they realize they're looking at how the whole moment is being. And so now, from that sentence, I'm going to open up the idea of what I was talking about, the infinite regress. So what the idea is that people were like, yo, how am I here? And they're like, okay, there must have been something that caused me before me. And then they're like, yo, my parents. And then they were like, yo, there had to be some other series of events and causes and sequences of actions. And you keep realizing that the torch has been passed, and we're trying to find the earliest cause to all these effects. Now here, the concept of an infinite regress, they say it's a metaphysical impossibility. Why? Because it can infinitely go back where the God has a God as a God as a God as a God, and so it's God ad infinitum, or God to the power of infinity. That's the notion of the infinite regress, or I shouldn't say God, because God is a unique God is like it's like a unique idea, right? It's like how you talk about God is like how you put a plant, how you put how you water a plant, you know. What I'm trying to say is we're in a cause and effect world. We're being one of those effects. And so we're like, okay, what caused the cause, the cause, the cause, the cause? And so we're causing it up to the origin. And we'll realize it's impossible. It's impossible for the concept of cause and effect to be there, because the first cause had to be uncaused. That means it's impossible for there to be a first domino. So it's not causal. So now this branches into two different views. The foundationalist view, they're like, okay, the cause of the series of effects that have led to now is not or cannot be defined by these effects. And it's another way of saying that the cause of our world was from another world. So it's like something from a, let's say, greater dimension. Imagine a cube suddenly set a destiny in motion for a square. At some point, just like, you know, how honorable gentlemen back in the day, you know, they would see a beautiful lady and they would take off their hats, you know. I feel we have reached that point in history where all members of the human species are noticing that we are self-projecting, and then having that self-projection self-claim reality. Really what's going on is that we are an intelligence. You know, I am way more convinced that I am the presence of an intelligence than I am a personality limited to a body. There is something going on here, guys, that is like we are beyond this dimension. It's like our minds are not from this world, but our bodies had to do something. You know? So anyways, the mask of God. It's another way of saying, you know, they say a lot of people have an existential crisis. Mysticism is like consciously doing that. You know, mysticism is the person being like, wait a minute, I can choose to satisfy myself with any sort of knowledge of system, but the unknown remains. You see, it's like the allure of religion was not what the revelation was, but was the concept of revelation. Because what revelation is a metaphor is a metaphor for experience. The purpose of experience is novelty. Existence is just being, just chilling. It's our minds. It's like there's this power that awakens and moves the body. right? This is more than just heat in a container. There's something coordinated, right? The brain is such a fascinating design, geometrical design. Like if somebody was like, what kind of technology is the human brain? It's like biochemical conversion of light into storyhood. Like it's mind-blowing what we're doing. We're just chilling here being like, yo, we're human beings, it's such a normal day. We're not realizing the sophistication of how many layers to the moment are being kept. And ultimately, it's leading to this question: if my sense of self is a mask, does this mask belong to the human being, to my humanness, or does it belong to what the whole moment is? I have realized the whole moment is the only thing that has been here. It's like what has been here before time is space. What is space? Potential energy. Space is like, it's very hard to say that there are forces out there, or it's like the soup coagulation of forces entangled, right? You know, like there's so many ways we can overlay geometry, and the issue with the educational system now is that they have not bridged the gaps. So what I mean by this is that right now, instead of there being just like King Arthur, like a round table with all the heads of different departments and all students, right? You see, the world has forgotten to become fascinated by itself because it has given itself, it has become a victim of its misery. Like when I think about evolution, I'm like, yo, did I evolve for 4.5 million years just to notice I'm suffering from the challenges of existing? No, we have not been conscious. Like we are not just alive to be conscious of suffering to the degree that this writer Aldous Huxley, wrote this sentence with geometrical appeal where he says, what if this world is another world's hell, right? Sure, this could be the lesser dimension to a higher dimension, but it could also be a higher dimension to the lesser dimensions. What it is that man is a mathematical creature. The mathematical nature of reality and its electromagnetic nature, technology has a way more significant role. And there may come a time in this world, who knows, maybe in the Andromilky galaxy or in the Milkometa galaxy, like they will be teaching this. That there are ancient mysteries, just like a person, imagine, beside a lake or a sea or something, and they suddenly see a whale come up, or imagine you're on a boat and you suddenly see a whale come close to the water, just like, puff out, while, let's say, Snoop Dogg music's playing, and suddenly the whale goes back into the water. Similarly, the past of the human being, really historians, like if we asked historians, what are you doing with all the money that we have given to all the history departments on the planet? And they're like, we've been accurately holding all the information, we've tried to be the greatest librarians, and at some point we're like, yo, whose story? Whose story? Whose mask? What claims ownership of the moment? And fundamentally, this is the cool thing about the design of us, that life emanates. It's like something expands out and then it expands in. And because there's this whole inhale, exhale, heart is beating, the body is acquainted to rhythmic existence, actually. What the human mind is an ability to choose. If we look at all the other species, we're like, what's that character's name? God. Out of all the species on this planet, our species has the greatest ability in noticing what dimensions there are to this world. And what our species has realized is that the dimensions are so vast and it's impossible to index the whole cosmos physically. And due to the nature of there being magic shows and optical illusions, we can no longer say we see it to believe it. We have to go back to an ontological level and be like, wait a minute, what is the core truth to all? And really what we are is we are moments of wakefulness. That's what we are. We are a space. Just like you turn on a candle in a dark room and there's a glow. When we wake up in the morning, when our eyes open, when consciousness is externalized, that's literally the candle glow. And people that from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, they're in the glow of their own mind. And those who have tasted a sort of solitude of a karmic exile, they appreciate this. That means, imagine on this planet so many different human beings are entering the system, and these human beings going into the games of the system, which is the sociological dimension to everything, right? And so as these human beings go into these games, there's winners, there's losers, right? Now, when we wonder about the nature of the human mind and and its evolution on this planet, what we know is that it adjusts. That's something we know. Right now, the human being of 2022 is just a creature that has adjusted to its inventions. Its inventions are products of abstraction. There can be this huge argument made that is the mind natural? I have caught on to this, like I've been playing with this argument recently in my spare time, where I'm like, okay, is the mind natural? What sort of list can we create to this? The mind is natural. Why? One argument is because the mind is being created from the body. But when we ask ourselves, wait a minute, is the free will natural? Because the free will is the creator of the unnatural. The free will is the experiencer of the unnatural. We're not just a creature of nature. We're a creature of nature that upon deviating from its rhythms experience the consequence. Just like the bees are living in an ecosystem. The human fascination and how consciousness is a spotlight in the darkness, a lantern in the darkness of the cosmos. Like what we are the live stream of the greatest thing that this universe could do now, right? When I ask myself, cosmos, is this the greatest being you can create? It's like this moment I'm existing. Is this the most advanced being, cosmos? And there's a moment of silence, and my mind goes to this idea that the most advanced beings are unconditional. And that's literally that has been my karma. So my divine remembrance was pretty much me realizing that before my name and my idea of me could claim my body, the whole moment was being the presence of the space of my mind. It's another way of saying that the mind has never known what's outside of it. The mind knows what it has welcomed, and what it welcomes is filtered by it. The mystery of reality awaits. And the philosophers in the future generations, the more we realize direct experience being a greater, more accurate source of the finding, right? It's like what all the teachers, all the academics on the planet are realizing. It's like that human consciousness is going towards emotional desire validation. We're becoming a species that technology is doing the analytical stuff, and we're like, yo, how do I feel? Do I want to relax? It's like, yo, let's create, it's like, what if robots did everything and we were all artists? Like. Anyways, what can I say? 4.5 billion years of evolution, and I ask myself, why? Why did my ancestors work so hard? Why? What were all the human beings that have ever lived on this planet looking at that I have not? And our common denominator is our future. Whoever you are, let me tell you how the spirit of the advanced civilization, how the songs of the advanced civilization are heard. It's like this level of thought where the person's like, wait a minute, I'm a mortal being. And then they're like, wait a minute, because I am a mortal being, I can use the mortality to create immortality. This is the genetical pattern. The DNA is not behaving as if the planet, it's like, you know what it is? To me, what the human soul poetically can be seen in a futuristic sense, it's like this. It's like the soul, it's like the human soul is this intelligence that was from beyond the clouds and wants to return there. There is something within us that is being on the earth and being the earth and being present in nature. We are as natural as a tree, rooted in the soil. Our minds are rooted in the awareness of the cosmos. When it comes to the idea of God, to me, I was like, yo, what do I do with this? And then I was like, what is God? And I stripped away all fathomable ignorance. And I asked myself, I don't know who I am. How can I believe in who the origin of the world is? And there was a moment where I realized why in religion they say wisdom begins, fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. This is a religious, monotheistic, held view. For me, that fear was that God was the inconceivable. I'm a person who was born in Iran. Iran is a theocratical society, which is another way of saying, just like church and state were separated in the West, in certain countries in the East, mosque and state have not separated. And so, it's like, imagine living in a religious country, realizing there's so many religious people on the planet and religious systems, and for a moment being like, wait a minute, what are we worshiping? And noticing that we are worshiping the inconceivable. God is inconceivable, so the concept of God, which is conceivable, is not God. Do you know? So what I'm trying to say is that the mask, it's like there's an ego, there's a persona, there's a sense of self here. This sense of self is here, like, yo, am I just this body? And this sense of self is realizing, no, I am where the body meets the world. The mind is where individual is an interface between an individual and collective. It's like, imagine in the future, scientists are going to be like, yo, you remember that God that religious people were talking about? Who knew? It's this super field of this other type of energy that has been moving everything this whole time. Imagine there is something, let's create a legend and call it Force Field Zero. And how a mathematician suddenly wonders, what the fuck are numbers? What else can I say? Is man a mask of God? I mean, there is this idea from the religious perspective. I mean, we can't ignore this. Japanese, like Shintoism, took it too far, where they were like, matter is everything. This dimension is like a vessel, and there's a highway of souls going through everything. What that means is, right now I coughed, in the sound waves of my cough, there's like a highway of souls in Shintoism. Like if you were into Shintoism, souls are imbued within everything, It's another way of saying, in Shintoism, the soul is considering itself as the original spirit, which emanates different spirits. You can say I'm a person who has emanated my spirit into these talks, I'm like this human being living every day, and these Mr. Within talks are like all the footprints. And they're footprints of moments of how my eyes saw reality. And ultimately, I've functioned under the main framework that, okay, what dimensions are there to life, and what dimensions to life have I experienced? Have I experienced an individual conscious dimension? Yes. Have I experienced individual unconscious dimensions, individual unknown experiences? Yes. I've had individual known experiences and individual unknown experiences. Okay, if somebody says, Mr. Within, have you had a collective unknown experience? I would say yes. Not assuming I am the knowing before I was born, but more with this sense that, like, I have realized my own nature to the point that language is external to my mind. So just like how I'm right now, this laptop is like, on my lap. Language is external to this unknown viewer, one-sided viewer force, right? So it's like we're looking, it's like they say the eyes are the window of the soul. So the person's like, yo, what's looking through my eyes? And they're like, yo, these ancient yogis and bearded fellow were saying it. It's the Atman, which is the real individual self. And the only way you get to know the real individual self, it's the collective self. And what I'm trying to say is that the earth seems to be pushing human beings towards a level of complexity. And that in this level of complexity, human beings demonstrate and they engage. You know what it is? It's like we're not that which is moving everything. We are like... This might be a bizarre thing to say, but we are like the neural synapses, the neurons of God. We are the neurons of a cosmic brain. What I'm trying to say is, like, when I think about, like, all these human beings being born, living, and no God can judge me, something like that, right? So similarly, the person's like, wait a minute. What has been watching my whole life? To me, God was a genius metaphor for consciousness. Because that, for awareness, it's an awakening. You see, to me, what's fascinating is that God is a verb. And I think Buckminster Fuller said something similar. But we're here like, yo, what kind of noun do I worship? Yo, are you telling me, there's a better noun for my truth to kind of like, jump to next? I am telling you, dear viewers, we are alive once. This is the main point of pretty much all these episodes. Okay, let me start from here. Is man a mask of God? What is man? Man has a subjective position, an objective position. What a mask is something laid upon. It's like a simulation which this truth is looking through, right? And so when we wonder about what is it that is moving all beings, all human beings on this planet, what is it that is being the intuition? Some ancient, sages were like, yo, Logos is up. Some modern sages, they in some sense are their minds. How would I tell you? Where we have reached an era where the human mind has probably gotten bored of visible reality. So we are like a species that is slowly tasting or slowly adjusting itself to the incredible palette of different ways reality can happen. Because really what the role of technology is converting macro complexity into micro simplicity. Really what it is we think we are a microcosmic being. We are actually a macrocosmic event. So what I'm trying to say is that our species is not ready to step out of the linguistic simulation, but I'm predicting it 3,600 years from now in my own work of Civilization 2.0. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that it's the question of what is moving the idea of us. If right now I ask myself, hey, podcaster, you're given a podcast, but who is giving this podcast? And I ask myself, where are my thoughts appearing from? And it's like, being a snowboarder who suddenly discovers a moving river underneath the snow. Which happened to me, actually. My laptop has 8% battery. We don't know if what is moving the moment is just our free will, or it's how the whole moment's will is being whatever archetype we attribute it. And the question comes, how would a fearless species advance? Whoever you are listening, if you have listened to more than 100 of these talks, then, I don't know, there has been something you have found, let's say, a vision has called you. Something I'm recommending, I wrote it in the About section, that viewers can send me emails. I wrote it in the channel description that viewers can send me emails, like essays on certain things I say in the talks, and we can have a sort of essay back and forth and turn that into a book or something. There's something about this plane of this world where I would say that there is no answer, and what it is in dynamism, multidimensional reality is possible, and static reality, everything singularizes. For me, I have had visions of an advanced civilization. There has been times where playfully I have entertained that I have been this sort of spirit of space, where in like, imagine, and it's not just here, imagine in all planets, all around the cosmos, imagine all planets where those civilizations are getting ready to get advanced. There is a Mr.Within in all of those civilizations. Why? Because when the student is ready, the master appears. A person wears a mask because the truth was not enough. There comes a point where it's pretty much known self, known world, unknown world. Okay? And these are four important ideas, kind of like two axes, two lines intersecting. Our minds are very advanced. Our minds, what we consider this whole time to be style and personality, has to do with our internal psychological freedom. And it's very remarkable, because we think when we wake up and when we see something happen, we are seeing something happen, but we are seeing ourselves happening. I want to see an earth before I transition out of this planet. I want to see an earth where there are the ratio of human beings on this planet. Everybody just wonders about the most advanced state of being, and everybody will realize, I have made this bold argument, okay? Laptop has 6%. This is pretty much what my whole life's work is on. What, like, all human problems on this planet have been because of the inability to discriminate between an inner subjective reality, an inner subjective realm, and an outer realm. So what that means is that when let's say you close your eyes, but you notice you can see, visualize, remember, whatever. Once a person notices what they have, once they trust what they have upon observation, then they can use what they have. Right now, I'm 1 in 8 billion creatures. We all have different DNAs. We all have different journeys. We all have different backstories. And it's like these 8 billion, souls wondering how to all live together. Everybody's kind of like in their own tent, and us not realizing that we are intelligent enough as a species to build something way more advanced. We have to realize everything on this planet, so far is civilization 1.0, the first prototype of civilization. We don't know what matter is. This is something philosophers politely don't bring up. It's like the philosopher, the scientist, was explaining something, and the philosopher was like, but what is matter, sir? And the scientist was like, you see, sir, you see this chair? And imagine the scientist throws the chair at the philosopher. I don't know. I guess I want to leave the viewers with this idea that life is incredible. We should trust it and live it, and we should trust our karma, and we should be honest to get to see what our actual karma is. The issue with dishonesty on any level of the human intelligence, let's say system, in any system, if there's any bit of dishonesty in the moment, the person can't tell if what they're experiencing is their karma. It's like how man finds God as a mind, is that the body becomes still, everything becomes still, and literally what meditation is an unknown being is wondering how it's knowing it's unknown. There's something fascinating about being like, how do I know something? And then there's a way of being like, wait a minute, how do I not know that I don't know? How do I not know eternal being, distinct from shapehood? Because what death seems to be is absence of shape. To me, everything is bound by shape, even as just a member of the male human species. It's like when I go about walking throughout the day, it's like sometimes I see certain princesses, and then I'm like, the biological body moves on its own, right? Like a human evolution has programmed male perception to curvature. I think men are way more incredible at designing curved. What I'm trying to say is that there's this brain in a body. This brain is going about its day. It's scanning the moment. It sees certain phenomena that the stimulus of the environment translates. It's like we see something and the world is a signal. %. Okay. I don't know, my fascination's like, okay, so there's a sense of self here, there's an ego here, sure, everybody acknowledges they have a mind, everybody acknowledges there's individual sense of self, great. Now the question comes, the mystical question, what is moving the ego? And what is the movement of the context of the world before the free will conceptualizes itself as a manifest entity? God masters humanity's greatness is this vision where I found it that in certain Eastern religious Abrahamic monotheistic traditions, one attribute that they have attributed to the source of creation is greatness. And for me, I don't know what it was, but just like a yogi who needed food to stay on this earth, I would say that it's the idea of the advanced civilization. As long as there's the potential for that, I feel my consciousness has purpose. But I have experienced moments of purposeless consciousness, and those moments are hilarious. In the silence of the moment, what else can the presence of everything do? We are the unknown movers in a world filled with endless, infinite geometrical possibilities of eventhood. We are inside a geometrical river. The legend of the human species is one where it will be written in history books beyond time. Our Earth is ready to have 8 billion creatures on a rock. Only one species has the opportunity to do this, so it should attempt it. Right? So the argument of advancement would be like, okay, if we are, like, the first thing is, are we being the most advanced species on the planet? The answer is yes. Okay, so should the most advanced species on the planet do the most advanced thing a species can? Yes. And then the most advanced thing that a species does, you know, when I was younger, my father was, when I was young, he was like a manager, CEO. And, you know, I remember there were moments where I saw his leadership in action. But I asked myself, what is leadership? And I realized for the longest time, like since childhood, I've had it, not since childhood, but since realizing, I've had a fascination for the concept of strategy. Right, for me, strategists, tacticians, generals, even the archetype of emperors, these are to me beautiful geometrical archetypes, right? Because they are the authorizations of force. So pretty much the greater the human mind, the greater force it has on earth, right? Like we may see some rapper like rap about stupid things, right? And billions of people are like seeing that rapper, right? Like that's a being that only through that context has managed to activate perception. But really what it is that the human mind is like, yo, I'm here for a limited time. Do I want to see what the most advanced version of everything can be? What would the most advanced human species be? The most advanced human being be? What would the most advanced